Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Accuracy in America. I'm your host, Don Irvine, joined by my co-host, Brian McNichol.
Hello, deplorables, dregs, despicables, garbage, chumps, Neanderthals, semi-fascists, maggots, weirdos, and of course those dog-faced pony soldiers.
See, I actually remembered to reorder them.
Got them in the good order. That was sweet.
I'm like, that way you don't have. That way you can just read it and not have to think about it.
Yeah, it's always good to spare me from thinking.
Hey, as we get older, it's a little tougher.
That's right.
All right, we have plenty of news, and we'll see where we go throughout this time today. First, start off with just we're right on the cusp here of Thanksgiving, and this is what happens when we have a Wednesday show. We're always going to be a day before Thanksgiving. Are you aren't you the chief cook?
I am the chief cook, but I am not cooking tomorrow. We go see some friends, and they do the cooking. And they're excellent cooks, so there's no reason to get in their way whatsoever.
I like that. Yeah, I was thinking. I mean, for the last several years, we had been invited to a friend's house. They had basically had a big family gathering, plus a few other people, and these people we knew from the church. But the extended family. I mean, it's pretty large. I mean, you've seen these families where the one person marries the person from the other family, and there's like 6 kids in one family, 7 kids in another family, and the next thing you know, then there are grandchildren or whatever, children, grandchildren, and so the thing just exponentially expands. And
my dad's the oldest of 14, so I think he has a sister with 15. So yeah, I got lots of cousins, big old family. I love it.
Yeah, so we go there, and they'll also invite some people who are like single, widowed, divorced, or whatever.
Yeah. These people like we go to now, they do that. They're like all their stray friends, basically.
Yeah, which is really nice because it's hard being alone. Last year I think we opted not to go because of the passing of Spencer. But this year we're thinking like, oh, we never got the invitation. But I think there's a little. I think there's some things going on in the family that are not quite smooth, though. Things have happened. Stuff happens in your family, right? And things. And so sometimes they just need to take a breather. I assume they're getting together, but maybe not as big an event. Who knows? So we're thinking like, yeah, what are we gonna do? So I had an email yesterday from Nando's Peri Peri, and I don't know if you know this restaurant. It's kind of a South African. I guess it started in South Africa, but it's really kind of Portuguese in terms of the way food. So it's chicken, right? Mm-hmm. It's all about chicken, but the seasoning they have on this is pretty awesome. So they're like, our locations are open. I sent my wife a text saying like, maybe this is an option, because they'll be open tomorrow in case you don't want to make anything because there are only 2 of us,
right?
And things like that. So I don't know. Hey, I may be having that. We're not big turkey people anyway. So, if we were at home, we'd be eating we probably would wind up eating either a pot roast or ham anyway. So
there you go.
So nice, good seasoned chicken. It's not a bad thing for us either. And we don't do cranberry sauce and stuff like that. I love stuffing. Okay, I love So that's hard to live without. But other than that, I'm a non-traditionalist. Because my parents weren't traditional. I don't recall eating turkey any time during the time we were growing up. My mother made a pot roast as far as I could recall. That's all I can remember. That's all I can remember is pot roast. So
we had we had great turkey and dressing, giblet gravy, and my sisters know how to make it, and so they make it, and it's just wonderful. So that's a big part of why I go home for Christmas is because they make They do the turkey and dressing for Christmas too. So, and it's divine. So it's weird. It's interesting. Like a totally opposite deal, but like it was always a big family event, and football game afterwards and all that kind of stuff. So,
yeah, I was listening to what is it, ESPN Daily's podcast a little bit this morning, and they're talking about how this begins the 4 days of football in essence, right? Between the pros and the college football. I'm thinking like the first person I thought about was you.
Well, I mean, the other thing is like, so there's been a football game on TV every day since about October the 4th, right? Because they have those little conferences that play Tuesday and Wednesday, and then, Monday night football, Thursday night football, and you're going again, right? And now Friday has become a big day for college football. There's a pretty good slate of games on Fridays now. So, football's on almost every day, but it's going to be thick. And also, the other thing is, like, if you're a March Madness person, right, this is when you learn where your upsets are going to be, right? Because all these teams are playing each other in these tournaments in Hawaii and the Bahamas and wherever, right? And over this weekend. And, you get matchups you won't see till the second weekend of the NCAA tournament. Right. It's really interesting basketball. And it's like, you can see the teams change over the course of the year, but you'll understand a lot more about what happens in March if you can make yourself, skip a football game and watch the basketball this weekend too.
Yeah. I mean, so plenty of sports for the sports lover.
Absolutely.
That's for sure. And, here we are. I wasn't sure. I have to be honest. I really wasn't sure about, college football and this 12-team playoff, but what it has done is it brought just this. It's kind of brought a madness among itself because there is a scramble to get in there, right? And you lose 1 week, you might drop down, but you may not drop out because you've got 12 teams instead of the old 4. So, and the old rules don't apply. I mean, one loss, what you could sustain one loss before, sustaining 2 losses, chances were there's no way you're going to get into the playoffs. Now you could have a 3-loss team potentially get in, depending. So all of a sudden,
to me now, that is not better. Okay.
Yeah.
I liked it when every game mattered. Like you lost in October to somebody you shouldn't lose to. Come back next year. You go play in your little bowl in Florida and you come back next year. Like every game counted, right? Now it's like, you can lose 2 or 3. And is Alabama really out of it after all the terrible losses they've had? And, who all still has a chance? And it's like, it's ridiculous, right? That's not what football is. Football is you play once a week and you get your verdict and you move on. And they've really watered this down. It's awful.
Yeah, I agree with you because that's the thing. This is what has bothered me about sports in general, is that they expand playoffs on the pro level, this kind of thing, and then what you do is that you do wind up watering it down. Getting to that Final Four, for college football, that was exciting. You were just like, you knew everything. There was always something was always on the line every single game. Now it's kind of like, well, we lost that game, but if we win out, we can still.
Alabama, Georgia played earlier this year, and it did not matter one bit who won the game.
Right.
They were both still in contention. Now, Alabama, things have happened since then, right? But that should be an elimination game. That's how this works. That's what made college football so great, is that you're playing for your life every second of the season, and now it's like you have 4 non-conference games that you're not playing for your life, right? They're chosen because they're worse than you, and you have 2 or 3 losses to play with and still make the playoffs. Depending on who you are, Alabama's going to get a lot more leeway than Auburn, right? They're 200 miles from each other in Alabama, but Alabama's earned the right in past seasons to be considered one of the 12 best teams in the country, almost no matter what their record is, right? So, you've made a joke out of it. They've made, it's. I don't think it's going to appeal. I really don't.
And the thing is that I'm not convinced that they are stopping here at 12. That they'll continue to tinker.
They're going to make it worse, right?
Yeah, they'll add another 4 teams and stuff like that, and whatever. All of a sudden, you'll have something that looks like college. Now, see, March Madness is special, to me.
Right. The basketball is a different sport. You play 2 or 3 times a week.
But boy, when they're playing and basketball, they're playing about 30-something odd games during the course of a year. These guys are playing 12, 13, 14 games in a season, depending. And it's just like those games should really count. You should have everything online. And the very idea that we have to have 12 teams duking it out for this makes
Right.
no sense whatsoever.
Well, I mean, it makes sense because
Well, yeah. Well, this is
yeah.
that's what it's all about now, right? It's
Right.
a
That's
money
what
game.
it's all about.
It's a money game.
And that's another thing that's another thing about college football. While we're ranting, is it's really all about money now. It's really all about who's got the NIL deals and where do you invest your money, and if you spend it, if you're spending on players, what can you spend on coaches, and so forth. I mean, you get into this thing to where it's just more and more and more, and all the players can make demands now and get those demands met, and so there's constant mobility. That's one of the problems that LSU's had is the guys are introducing themselves to each other during games, because they're from somewhere else. They last season they were elsewhere. They were different philosophy, different coaching, and all that. And this year, they've got this new job and this new money and whatnot. So, it's just hard. It's not what it was. I think it'll, I think there's a mass growing of people who look at what's going on now and see that it's sort of unworkable, that, pretty soon we're going to get some smart people talking about how to fix it.
Yeah.
Right. Because it's out of control and they're hurting their product.
Yeah, this just makes me wonder about the, just really kind of the effectiveness of the NCAA at this point in time to police any of this stuff.
The NCAA to me is like the FBI. You may there's a little bit of it there that's worth saving, but most of it is not, right? And sort of the reason it exists is sort of questionable as well. I mean, that's an institution that is ripe for getting overturned, getting, marginalized. I think that you're going to see the big conferences essentially make their own organization, right? That very little answers to NCAA on anything, if at all, right? Right now, NCAA controls the basketball rights, so they'll all have to kind of work with them on that. But once that expires, I think that deal will be made differently next time too.
Yeah, I mean, it's just I think we will see definitely more changes down the line. All right, now that the rant is over, as you say, we did have an announcement that there's been a ceasefire announcement between Israel and Hezbollah. So far, it's holding. We don't know how long it'll hold. What is the advantage for Israel here with this at this point?
I think Trump asked him to do it, and he said he would come in and clean it up when he takes office. So that's what the Israelis are saying. That's what even one of the Democrats said on TV, that this was done more to answer to what Trump wanted done. He's talking to Netanyahu on an almost daily basis now. It's really kind of interesting that he's pretty close to running the country already, right? He's naming the people who are going to take over and so forth. Most times, presidents are still, they haven't spat out any or very few nominations, right? I think he's almost done, right? The 27 people or whatever he has to appoint, I think he's pretty close to finished. So, I think that's one of the things is you're going to see a new, more permanent arrangement come about pretty soon after Trump takes office. I think they're already working on standing the Abraham Accords back up and, getting the right people on the friend side and the right people on the enemy side.
Yeah, it seems that Biden wants to, he thinks that this will be a springboard to doing the same thing in Gaza with Hamas, but that's a different animal there.
Yeah, that's a different animal. That they're going to have to finish that job. They messed around and they got to find out.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know if Biden is going to try to use this as kind of, I'm going to take credit for for this before I go, my last big hurrah before I leave office in a couple of months.
He's trying to. And the Democrats are all painting it as this great statesman bringing all these people together and all this stuff. Hezbollah wants a separate deal, right? They want, one of the reasons they're doing this is they want separation from Hamas, right? They want their own deal, their own arrangement. So because I don't think they're any less Jew hating than they were before, but I think they are less inclined to handle it violently.
All right, we will have to, like a lot of other things, wait and see. We've seen this story before too, where they get to the ceasefire announcement, but they don't hold up very long before it collapses, and they go right back to where they were before. But the left always, and we've said this before too. I mean, they continue to ignore, who the aggressor was in all of this. Hezbollah, rains fire on Israel, and things like this, and yet, but the left is always, whether or not it's Hezbollah or whether or not it's Hamas, it's always like, well, Israel, Israel's the one that's got to fix this. Israel's the one that's got
their response was disproportionate. Like, no, it wasn't. You bombed us, we bombed you. That's proportionate.
Yeah,
we're better at it. Whoops.
There was an interesting article in the Journal the other day about I guess about these missiles that are flying around. There are civilian planes. I mean, from in Abu Dhabi and whatever Emirates. I mean, carrying just ferrying their normal passenger loads back and forth, and that people are now getting a little bit alarmed because they're actually seeing these rockets and these missiles not that far away. They're trying to avoid them. But there's so many that were being launched. I mean, you could actually see them from the airplane window.
Right.
So, yeah, I'd stay out of that region for a while.
Right. That's right. And they want to. Biden's trying to escalate it. I think that he's been incremental in all this, which has kind of allowed Putin to do what he wants. One of Trump's advisors said this week that when Trump comes in, his plan is to tell Putin, I'm going to load Ukraine to the teeth, right? You're going to be fighting all of us in full force unless you stop. So, you can see a lot more of this before it ends.
Yeah, I was visiting with a couple that I know. They're heading off on this kind of world tour. I mean, I think the husband, this is a second marriage. I guess it's probably hers as well. So she's like 61. I think he's well into his 70s, but they're leaving next week on a cruise that will take them to 29 countries over the next 4.5 to 5 months. And so they've asked me to kind of watch over their house, and so I had a full page list of like passwords and instructions, and got the tour of the house and all kinds of things. But the wife, she is Ukrainian Russian, and so I went over there thinking like, okay, I'm going to go over there and kind of get my instructions, and then I can go on about my day. It's like they sat me down, insisted I have some herbal tea, fed me some little, I guess it's a Russian roll of some sort she was baking. It was all well and fine. And then we get into, they want to talk a little bit about world affairs or whatever and things like that. And, she had some pretty strong feelings about Putin, and Ukraine and Russia, the whole situation and all of that. And I think, fitting right in with what we've talked about before in terms of, Putin's long-term goals, in that region, and what happens there, and people do not go against him. It is authoritarian. He gets,
right.
So we kind of compared. We talked about that and China's role in backing, Russia and things like this. So it was kind of interesting to listen to the husband himself. I think he's from South America originally, I believe. Anyway, but he has. I think he feels the same way. I mean, an older guy like that tends to be a little more conservative, I think, in his thinking, and sees all of these things that are going on. But it's there are, she says, she brought up, for example, I guess she took the daughter that they had together to Russia 5 years ago. She says it was beautiful. She says, the city was, cities were beautiful, everything was great, and everything like this. But it was just kind of a trap by Putin to kind of win people over. But he had no compunction, whatever. It wasn't very long before he just clamped down and do all these things and restrict freedoms and everything like this, impose his will and things. So, it's like, yeah, well, it's like, what do you want? What do you want with, any communist type country, right? I mean, China's been horrible, right? The more stories I read, it's the worse, it gets. Look at Hong Kong. I mean, for heaven's sakes, businesses are fleeing Hong Kong. There's no one who runs a business, and the multinational corporations don't want to stay there anymore either, because everybody's being thrown in jail, in prison. All those people, when we had all that Hong Kong,
the government's taking your assets, but making you put their people on your management boards, and your acquisition, controlling your acquisitions. You have to buy it from CCP companies, right, which sell it to other Chinese companies cheaper than they sell it to you, to ensure that they can undersell you. So yeah, there's a lot of problems. It's a deal with the devil when you go over there, and you get to meet the devil pretty soon after.
Yeah. So I've been to Hong Kong, once or twice. Just we stayed there for a while in between on a trip that we took to Korea, and spent a couple of days there. It's like it was nice. It was wonderful, but I cannot even imagine what it'd be like today. Now that China has done what they've done there, there was still capitalism, in evidence back then, but now it's just different. There are places that we want to be able to go to, and then now you're like, I don't know if I want to go there anymore, because you just don't know, and it's just not the same for everybody in doing that. So the other thing about what's been going on there too is the International Criminal Court issuing these arrest warrants for Netanyahu and Gallant, and so there's what 124 countries that are members of the ICC, which technically, I mean, if Netanyahu was to travel to those countries, they're supposed to arrest him. So he would definitely stay away from that. But France has already said, like, look, he's got immunity. We're not going to do this. Biden has already called them out on this. I mean, the International Criminal Court, are they worth anything? What is it? What is going on with these guys?
Well, it's a joke. I mean, and we never signed up, and I think it's a good thing. That's one of the few things that W got right, was he told them to pound sand, right? Because we're not under the jurisdiction of anybody but U.S. courts. Right? I think that's the very kind of like internationalist sort of world gov, arrangement that Trump most hates, right? Will most go after. So I don't think you'll see us in it anytime soon. And it's ridiculous. It's the smallest people with the least amount to lose out of being stupid, having the loudest voice.
Yeah, well, and once again, this is just like what the left has been talking about, right? I mean, it's like you want to arrest Netanyahu and Gallant for the war crimes, all these things. Like, wait a minute. Once again, who started this?
Yeah.
Right. You're not going after the people who actually started this whole mess. It's like this. That this is a joke when this happens. It's like
that's right. You can't take it seriously.
Yeah. So but the problem is, in my mind, is just that it carries a little bit of weight, at least, kind of in people's minds, because it's like the International Criminal Court. Well, that sounds like, has 124 countries that are member, to this. Well, that sounds like it's really official and has a lot of weight and jurisdictions. Like, yeah, but who are the people that are running this thing? Who's the clown that made the decision, right, to go ahead and issue these warrants? That type of thing. It's just like, let's look at this a little bit more objectively, and you're going to say, no, this doesn't hold water at all. Ignore whatever they say and then move on, right?
Right.
And so, once again, it'll be a different ball game in about 54 days.
Yeah, it really will.
So And
it's coming, man, like a dream.
so I'm going to ask you this question. Do you have any plans on Inauguration Day? I mean, were you at the last one for Trump in 2016?
Yeah, I was there in 20. Yeah,
yeah,
we were there. I remember we were downtown, and we saw the burning limousine. We saw that. We were like right past that.
Oh man,
it was with my kids. It was just and there was people just walking up, punching people in the street, and just violent anger everywhere from the leftists. Right? They're not. They don't. They don't take this stuff. They lash out like children. And that probably be some of that, but I don't know. It'll be interesting to see the reaction to this one. There's a lot of bitter clingers, and there's people claiming that was stolen and the regular riffraff on this thing, but the reaction's different this time. It just like the anger, for one thing, has shifted a lot from anger at Trump to anger at Trump supporters. Right? You have all these people like, we're talking about Thanksgiving, and until I'm not letting any of my Trump voting family have Thanksgiving with me. I'm not talking to them. I don't speak to them. I don't take their calls. Right? You don't hear any people on the right saying that. Right? Well, you voted for Harris. We're never speaking again. That always comes from the left. Right? They personalize these things. Right? Because we're bigots and we're stupid, and a long list of stuff I said at the first of the show. But we don't do that. They do that, right? That you can sort of see the difference between them and how this works and so forth. So, I think this time it's like there's a lot of seething, but I don't see them. I think they know that what Trump is going to do is inevitable. It's going to happen. Yeah,
I mean, I'll see what the weather's like come January. I mean, that last time, in 2017, as I recall, I mean,
it was cold, but it wasn't that bad.
It was like an overcast day. I think,
the 40s.
I think people had umbrellas because there might have been some light rain or whatever.
There was some rain, yeah.
But it wasn't 30 degrees and absolute freezing. You could stand around and wait for a while and everything like that. So I don't know. I'm going to be kind of curious to say, do I bother? Do I go down there or whatnot? I mean, there's something about this whole thing that does have a bit of a draw for me.
Yeah, me too.
But I don't know. I'll wait and see what it's like. Maybe my wife will want to go down this time. All the TV she watches, via YouTube and stuff like that. She's probably become more diehard on this stuff than I have ever been. So it's pretty. It's interesting to watch her just kind of really evolve and develop on this. But I can thank Megyn Kelly and Victor Davis Hanson, probably the two most influential people for her that really have helped shape her opinion about where we are and what we need to do. So 54 days. I mean, it's going to happen, and it's going to happen fast. All right. Yep. So we talked a little bit about Thanksgiving and what's going on for that. So we also had changes. You mentioned about how many more people Trump has got to appoint. He's pretty much he's finished filling out his cabinet, I believe. I think the cabinet level positions are now done. The major cabinet level positions were done. Matt Gaetz withdrew, and before you could blink your eyes, it seems Pam Bondi was the nominee. It was, and I don't know. I'm like, that was so fast. It's like,
it's a little.
They were ready. If they.
I guess they were ready, and I guess that if your objective is to have a second pick ready to roll quick, okay. But I mean, I think that there were better people out there for this. Now she is a manager. She's managed these big offices before, so that was supposedly a drawback to Gaetz, as he's never really run anything like this, and she has. And I suspect that he will be a special counsel of some time for Trump. He's Gaetz really wanted to do one thing, as Attorney General, and that was, Muck the Algie and Stables at DOJ and the FBI. So there's more to the job than that, right? I think that, so I think what'll end up happening is the more to the job part will be handled by Bondi, and the Muck and the Stables will still be handled by Gates.
Yeah, and Bondi should, barring anything unforeseen, she should sail through confirmation.
She should sail through. Yeah,
that's not going to be an issue for her. Yeah, once again, Trump has nominated, put together an interesting cabinet. I mean, this is I'm on my last term. I'm going to put the people I want to put in there. I don't really care what everybody else thinks about them. Some of them may flame out on me before we get, before the nomination process. Some may flame out during the nomination process. But these are people I'm going to either reward because they've been loyalists to me, or, I think that they're right for this position, and they tend to defy, convention, and a lot of them are not your traditional picks. Yeah, are there other people that are better than Bondi? You could say the same for a lot of other positions, but she has been a very loyal supporter of Trump. Let's see what she does. And as a female, it'll once again bring a different look to it. She'll only be the third female attorney general we've had in the U.S. history. Right. So yeah, this Trump administration is going to be kind of mind blowing in a lot of ways. I think this is, I think we mentioned last week, they didn't do these nomination announcements the traditional way. He was just using like True Social or other things. It's like, here it is. No press conference. Boom. Here it is. Here's another one. Here's another one. You've got, you got to keep your eyes open for things that he was just throwing them out there, rapid fire, and making the media's head spin on this. And it's hard. I think
he wants agents of change, right?
Right.
Hegseth, he's never been a flag officer and all this, that, and the other, right? That's a plus, right? He wants people who come in knowing that the thing has to be changed dramatically, right? Don't be married to the old ideas. Don't be even familiar with the old ideas. Come in and assess them cold like everybody else would, and make the changes that need to be made. The other thing is I don't know how huge it is who's in his cabinet, because policy is going to be run out of the White House in this administration, as I think everyone knows, right? So, whatever they're doing, it's going to be what the White House said to do. I think that's why Trump made the deal he did with the labor secretary, right? She was somebody who's the unions find acceptable for various reasons. And so that's what he's doing there. He placated a constituency that rewarded him pretty well this time around. You don't win those blue wall states without a pretty good bit of union support. And he's got a shit in the game for on down the line, right? For next time, for whatever he needs it for. So I think that's one of that. That's part of that. But most of them are aggressively Trumpian. They're what you would expect him to pick. And I question, people say, oh, they're not experienced. Well, what we have considered to be experience in the past has not proven very helpful in terms of succeeding in those jobs, right? The signals are mixed, right? So, should we always pick flag officers for Secretary of Defense? I don't really think so. I think some of our better secretaries of defense have not been flag officers. So, this is a civilian controlled government. So the idea that, you could just plug in a top military guy and you'll get good results. Top military guy, it's going to be harder for him than anyone to bring about real reform, because, right, he's part of the thing he's trying to change. And, it's like, you understand, you were here, right? You can hear those conversations. You know why we can't do this. And it's like, Trump is looking for people who don't want to hear about why you can't do stuff. We want to hear about how you just did it, right? So I think he's, these are change agents, people of action, and he expects action to be taken quickly. I think like Nome, obviously he puts Nome and Homeland Security. That's a big job for her. Somebody who's most famous for shooting dogs. But I think he knows that she's committed to the ideas, and he's going to have people like Tom Homan who are dominating the portfolio of the agency anyway.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I'm curious about this, this labor pick. I mean, Lori Chavez de Romer, because she is very much pro-union. She supports the PRO Act, which is really really would support unionization
right.
Overall, and does not
kill the gig economy, which so it'll never happen.
Right. It's not favorable at all towards right to work laws and things like that. So this will be interesting to see. I mean, if you're right in terms of that you're running from the White House, then maybe she gets handcuffed a little bit in terms of like, well, you may want this, but we don't want this. He's like, right. we've nominated, we've got you there. The unions will like you there. But we are not going to abandon a lot of the people that help.
We're carrying out the president's agenda, not yours.
Yeah, right. So it'll be interesting to see exactly how effective she is. But I think overall too, I think that whatever this cabinet winds up being, I think it'll wind up being more effective than the current administration, which seems to have a lot of problems with there. But without Gates as kind of the center point, the focus of, he's not going to get confirmed. He's meeting with senators. He doesn't have the 50 votes and whatever, won't get enough votes, to get confirmed by the entire Senate. So then the spotlight went, to Gabbard and Hegseth in particular. Right. And so
they're going to run the same number. They talk to the Russians, pay no attention, ignore, press forward. That's the good thing about Trump's political situation. He doesn't ever have to run for re-election. It's like he can tell him to pound sand.
Yeah. So it's interesting if you look at Polymarket, because about a week ago, when Gates was still in it, Gabbard, Hegseth, RFK Jr. were like in the 70% range on Polymarket. Post Gates, Gabbard's dropped to 54, Hegseth has dropped to 68, I think, and RFK is somewhere out there. So their percentages have dropped. Gabbard dropping the most, because now Gabbard seems to be the next target once again because of this, talking to Russia, the whole deal with anything, her talks with Assad and things like that. And she'll come under some scrutiny. I don't know whether or not this affects, her ability to get confirmed yet. We'll have to wait and see. I mean, there are Republicans. I mean, I guess it's not just Collins and Murkowski, but I guess Mitch is kind of like, well, this is probably my last rodeo, and I can do whatever I want to do, and if I can hold this up if I need to now.
Yeah.
So it's possible that Mitch might join him and bring him back, bring him down to 50, and then they got a problem.
Well, then Vance votes as vice president.
Can Vance vote for a confirmation hearing?
Yep.
Okay.
Sure can.
For legislation, I wasn't sure he could vote for the confirmation hearing.
Yeah, he can, and he plans to if they give him trouble. And I think what you're going to, I think that Mitch is about to learn the length of his tether, because I think Trump's got a special little package of things that Mitch will not want to have happen to him, that Trump will be able to make happen to him if he doesn't play ball. So I don't think Mitch holds the high hand on Trump, and I think he may be about to learn.
I mean, this is going to be Mitch's last term in office, right? We don't expect him to run again, do we?
No, I think he's already said he's not going to run again.
Yeah. So that'll be interesting to see what happens when his term is up anyway. Now, once again, more differences in the Trump administration. Jay Bhattacharya, to lead the NIH. Okay, now we're talking. This is completely different.
Well, this is a guy that the NIH got social media to ban his tweets because he was contradicting their findings on COVID. And, you know, he ended up being right. And now he's leading the agency that was censoring him. So he is, you know, his comeback story rivals Trump's. And it's beautiful to see that someone overcame being censored by the thugs of this administration to lead the agency that was censoring them.
Yeah, I mean, and what does this mean for overall policy relating to vaccines? I mean, you know, going forward. I mean,
I think that they're going to have to. There's, you know, there's some questions that should have been asked a long time ago are going to have to get asked. And like, you know, we don't have polio anymore, right? So, you know, there was some positive came from the polio vaccine. My mom had polio. It's not good, right? So that was a positive thing, okay? But when we did get to where we had all these vaccines, you know, as RFK points out, we also got to where a whole bunch of other bad outcomes mushroom beyond all mathematical probability. So, you know, what did happen there? Why is that happening? You know, how can we fix this, right? Do we have to do without vaccines? Can we modify the vaccines? You know, what works? Why is this happening to us? How do we prevent it? Because we're running into, and now you're starting to have it with the, you know, there's been another like tsunami of heart attacks and myocarditis and so forth, you know, as these COVID vaccines work their way through people's bodies and through society, right? There's all kinds of problems that they covered up about that. So, yeah, I think that, you know, and this guy's a scientist. I think he wants to get to the bottom of the story. I think, you know, they have, you know, RFK obviously has some, you know, has drawn some conclusions. He says, you know, the vaccines caused, right? And I don't know that we have a causal link, but we need to find out if we have a causal link. We need to find out, you know, how do you fix it? Because I think we all agree that, you know, if we can wipe out whooping cough and polio and measles and so forth through this, or however, that would be a good thing. But if it's, you know, bringing us from, you know, 1 in 10,000 are autistic to 1 in 37, right? If that's the cause of that, then we need to fix that. We don't want you to be spiking in autism. That's not good for us. And it may be that we've modified genetic structure to the point there's nothing we can do about it. There's no reversing it. So, you know, I don't really know.
Yeah, I mean, every year at this time, you know, I face that kind of conundrum of the flu vaccine. Here I am at 65. I've never had a flu vaccine, a flu shot.
The chances that the flu vaccine hits the right virus of flu and so forth is about 54%. So it's half and half, basically. You know, it might be useful, it might be useless. And, you know, it's just slightly better chance that it's useful. So to me, I'd just take my chances with the flu.
Right. I mean, that's what startled me, I think, originally when I learned this several years ago. It's just that, you know, because, you know, I know lots of people, you know, I mean, you know, when my mother got older and she was in the nursing home or whatever, it's like, they would say, like, can we give her a flu shot? And I'm like, yeah, go ahead. I mean, you know, at her age, I guess, why it's okay, you know. And I think just because there's a lot of stuff going around in a nursing home, I'm like, maybe it'll just help prevent something else from happening when you're in there with a bunch of old people. But myself,
right, that's virus. Recovering from viruses, you know, that's much harder the older you get. Half the people who died of COVID were 87 or older, right? So only half the victims were younger than 87 years old, right? Think about that, you know?
Right. Yeah, but
that's not just old. That's real old.
Yeah, right. And I mean, what I was trying to say was basically what you were saying. I mean, when they create these flu vaccines, they are basically doing their best guess as to what will be the most effective treatment. This is not an 80-90%, you know, rate. Because you know, I mean, I think I was taught really more or less, in essence, just that, you know, vaccines basically they prevent whatever you're getting. They prevent that you from ever getting it. But that's not true. That
Right.
it will largely, the chances are they will, some of the vaccines are more effective than others, and so the chances are, yeah, you won't get it if you get certain vaccines, but the flu vaccine is a much tougher target,
Yeah.
and even me, who's now immunocompromised, I'm like, I think I just take my chance. I don't go
Yeah.
out a ton. I try to limit a lot of that stuff anyway. So it's like, it would have to be an unusual circumstance for me to come down with the flu.
Yeah. I go to gyms every day. So if I don't have immunity, then there ain't no immunity.
Yeah. Herd immunity.
Yeah. I mean,
And everything. All right. Jack Smith has officially filed, and they've got without prejudice. They've gone ahead and dropped the federal cases against Trump. The state cases are still out there, and I guess the states want to be able to say, we just want to postpone these for 4 years and then bring them back when he's no longer the president, which I think is stupid. But they're dumb people that are running the show over in these states anyway. But at least Smith in this case he's done the right thing. He's really done the only thing he could do, because you can't prosecute the president.
Well, see, that's part of the thing is like the actions that he's prosecuting for. The whole claim is that they weren't taken as president, right? So what the Supreme Court ruled is that if it was taken as president, then he is immune as president. Okay, so the prosecution, that's not what was wrong with the prosecution. What was wrong with the prosecution is, you're trying to, Trump didn't tell anybody to go riot. He said, go home in peace and all this stuff. So the actual thing, he did not plan an insurrection. He did not have anything to do with the people who went to the Capitol, right? But they're trying to prove that he did. So, this is, we don't have a case. And even the BS charges you came up with to try to make it look like a case have been invalidated by the courts. So you don't have any case at all. So it's mighty big of you to say, we'll put it off 4 years because of the OLC opinion on charging sitting presidents. That's what this guy's saying, right? And it's a dodge, and it's to keep it in front of the American people. Oh, those charges weren't dismissed. They were dismissed without prejudice. They could be brought back at any time as soon as he's not president anymore. And besides, he was just running to stay out of jail, right? I mean, that's what they were saying. He wasn't going to jail anyway. He's not going to go to jail. He's not going to pay E. Jean Carroll. And all the people who went after him on spurious grounds better be looking over their shoulders, because he is coming back to get them. He is going to straighten this out.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's like, if you thought that all this stuff, I mean, the thing is that we both know, these cases made Donald Trump the 47th president of the United States.
Yeah.
Without filing these cases and these charges, the chances are he would have had a harder time running for office. I mean, people weren't really thinking about it. They were focusing on DeSantis and others, but he was able to leverage these judicial cases, these little cases, and make himself the victim, and then reinvigorate the MAGA people, bring in a whole bunch of other people that he hadn't had before, people who just said that justice, has been perverted. In Great Britain, I think, when they arrest you, they have a charge there. It's like, you perverted the course of justice is one of the charges they can make against you. Well, yeah, I think Jack Smith, Fonnie Willis, Alvin Bragg, all these people, Letitia, all these people, they have all perverted the course of justice, right? By their actions. And all of this stuff has come back and bit them in the hiney, because they thought they were going to be able to wipe Trump off the map. And instead, they breathed new life into him. And guess what? So we now have the 47th president of the United States, the guy who's come back.
Right. So think of this. Okay. When they started in on the lawfare, as you just pointed out, it was not at all clear that Trump would be our nominee this time. Right. There was DeSantis. There was a few other people who seemed like viable contenders. And DeSantis ended up being a really terrible candidate and probably can never really run for president again. but he took a shot, right? And there was there were a lot of people who thought that he would win, and we were tired of Trump and we're moving on and so forth. But when they singled him out and went after him with this stuff, Americans saw he is the guy, right? It reinvigorated him because like why did they attack him unless he is the one that they expect to become president otherwise, right? They don't care about DeSantis. They can deal with DeSantis. The one they fear was Trump, and that's why they threw all the lawfare at him, right? They did. They told Americans, yeah, this is the guy you should be thinking about. Up or down on this guy, right? And the entire election was up or down on this guy, right? What Harris did, spending what $1.5 million, she's $1 billion. I mean, 1.5 billion with a B. Bought a bunch of celebrity people to come sing concerts and whatnot. You can criticize all that, but it really didn't matter, right? She didn't really have a chance. The polling didn't change from, and I guess one of her people was out today or yesterday was on some talk show, and they're like, we kept seeing these polls that had us ahead, and we're like, we don't have any polls that have us ahead. We know they knew they were losing the whole time, right? So, and then I don't know if you saw this, but she came out with like another thank you to the supporters. Did you see this? You should watch the video.
Talking about the video that showed up on X.
Yeah, Twitter. She is very clearly drunk in that video.
It was so weird.
Yeah. Why would you put her on there drunk?
Yeah.
I mean, we've all talked whining drunk. So I love you so much, right?
Yeah, I mean, you could. I mean, just the comments from some of our, conservative friends. They're just kind of like, who approved this? How did this happen?
Yeah.
Why do you let this happen? It's like, it made absolutely no sense. People are like, something off about this. What's wrong with this? It is the weird.
That's what's wrong with it.
Yeah, and the whole kind of the finger pointing thing. It's like you still have the power. It's like who wants this? Who needs this from her at this point in time? I mean, that also brings up just some of the, not just that polling issue in this video, but Stephanie Cutter, Jen O'Malley Dillon, and David Plouffe on Pod Save America. They're talking about Plouffe is like, well, it's really hard for Democrats to win the battleground states. I'm like, what? It's like, who's won those battleground states, the blue, more than anybody else? I mean, you guys have had more success at it than the Republicans have, but they're struggling so much trying to figure out what the heck's going on, and Cutter and Dillon, they're talking about how the questions that were being asked, of Harris were just, they weren't serious. They weren't. It's like, look. And they thought that was BS that she had avoided the press. It's like, no, right. She avoided the press. They carefully crafted her press appearances, right? Yeah. Give $250,000 to Al Sharpton's, network, American Action Network, and then go have this all puffy interview. But they spent all that money,
60 Minutes literally fixed that answer for her. The 60 Minutes, they asked her about Netanyahu, and Face the Nation ran the actual clip of what she said, which was complete word salad. There were actions taken, and things have occurred, and secular behaviors have happened, and the way we wanted events to influence in Israel. And you're like, oh, what? But she kept talking for 10 more minutes, and there was like a line or two that you could use. So in the morning, if on Face the Nation, or which one is Meet the Press, whichever one is CBS, right? You got the word salad, but on 60 Minutes, you got it way like 5-10 minutes of her yammering on down the line. They took that and moved that to be her answer, right? So then you can see that, I mean, they're having to lie to her. The Dana Bash interview before that, they had, 26 minutes of interview or interview. She left early because she couldn't take the questions anymore. And they used like 12 of it, and they wouldn't explain where the rest went. And, all the stuff that had Dr. You. If you look at the look on Dana Bash's face during that interview, you can tell that she's like, oh my gosh, this woman has no business being president. And I can't tell anybody that because I am, contractually bound to be on the other side. So yeah, I don't know.
So you have 60 Minutes, you got Dana Bash, you've got a handful of interviews that she didn't pay for. And then you've got several interviews that she basically did pay for. And the result didn't change anything. She's a bad candidate.
Yeah.
She was terrible. And so it didn't make a difference whether or not they paid them or not. The result was the same. She was horrible.
Yeah. And if she's talking about, keep my options open for 2028. You're free to run in 2028, but there'll be primaries then, right? They're not going to declare you the nominee in 2028, and you're not going to win, right? Because like the last time you tried to primaries, you didn't even make it to the year of the election, right? You were out before election year began. So
so let's look at your track record. You dropped out of the 2020 race before
in 2019.
In 2019, you get anointed because President Biden, decides that he saw the handwriting on the wall after a terrible debate performance, and so he cuts bait, and then you get basically just given this role handed to you, a golden ticket opportunity, and you blow that. It's like, how many opportunities do the Democrats want to give you for that? You have not done any. You have not proven yourself that you are a viable presidential candidate for them, and they want this office back. And you're not going to get it back.
You provided more evidence that you are not than anyone else alive right now.
Right. Yeah. And the Democrats they need to go with somebody different. And that's what they will wind up doing in 2028. No doubt. Okay. Just real quick. Trump has been, I love him. I mean, I don't necessarily agree with it, but he's been throwing out all these tariff threats. But you have to admit, I mean, he I didn't see the one for Canada and Mexico coming necessarily, but Trudeau, boom, on the phone. I got to talk to him.
So he's trying to get two things out of Canada. One is some control of the border, and the other is like dairy tariffs, right, are very high. Dairy product tariffs are going into Canada is like 235% tariff. So Canadian milk and stuff can be sold in the U.S., but no U.S. milk can be sold in Canada because of the tariff structure against us. So Trump is like saying to people, you're going to make this fair, or we're going to jack you to the point where you can't make any money. So, and he's down about 35 points now to Puliev in the polls.
Yeah, he's unless something miraculous happens, he's done for. All right. We're about out of time, so give you about a minute or so to wrap it all up for us.
Okay, well, one thing, RIP to my friend Fred Smith, who was one of the great think tank leaders in Washington. He founded the Competitive Enterprise Institute, where I used to work. It was a libertarian think tank. Fred came to Washington to work for the EPA, and he went there and he saw that the EPA was more interested in growing its budget and its influence and so forth, rather than actually protecting the environment. And that, in fact, the best way to get the environment protected was to enlist the private sector, right? Because they want the environment protected too. And so that's what he devoted his lifetime to getting individuals to do things that everyone else assumed government had to do. He put me in touch with some of my favorite people on the planet, and a genial, nice man. I wrote in this something earlier that when I went to work there, or I was getting ready to go to work there, I found out his wife is heavily involved. And I'm like, oh, that's a bit of a red flag, right? You could, what if she has her own agenda? What if she just doesn't take a shine to me? Like, what happens, right? His wife, Fran, is tremendous. And they were the perfect pair, right? They work together perfectly. And, so prayers for Fran as she goes through this. And RIP to Fred, who great Louisianan and great think tank leader in Washington.
Louisiana, and I did not know that. Okay.
Slidell.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've met Fred in the past, obviously, and I will say one thing, having seen a lot of leaders of conservative organizations in DC, I think he's one of the rare people too that didn't really seem to have this big ego. That it was
Right.
not it was not that I'm self-important. There are
Yeah.
people in this movement that bother the heck out of me because it's all about them and not about
Right.
the movement. But Fred was all about the movement, and he wanted to really solve these problems. So my hats off
Yeah.
to him, and yes, to his family for this. He was what, 83, 84 years old.
Yeah.
Lived a good life.
Yeah, he
Done
had
a
an
great work.
accident, and he had lost a lot of his faculties and whatnot. So
Okay. All right. Well, that's a good way to end this, I guess. And solemn note, as everybody, as always, please stay safe and stay well. Remember, we live in the greatest country in the world. Do not let anyone tell you otherwise. And as always, God bless America. And we will see you again next week. I think actually probably have to do the show on Thursday, if you're okay with that.
okay.
So we'll talk more. All right. Thanks, everyone. See you again.